Welcome. In just 2 weeks, we will start distributing over 10,000 family-to-family food boxes on all of our campuses to show the love of Christ to those in need. 1 in 4 children in our valley are living in poverty, and over 600,000 children are receiving breakfast and lunch at school so they will not go hungry. But what happens when school is closed for Christmas break? Kids go hungry. This isn't acceptable, and the answer is as simple as one box filled with 23 items. It's so simple and yet so easy to overlook, though, in our busy schedules. This Christmas season, all of CCV is coming together to make sure that at least 5,000 families will not have to choose between Christmas gifts, paying bills, or food. There is no reason any child should go hungry in our valley. The distribution of these food boxes is right around the corner. Now pick up as many boxes as you know that you will fill. Make sure you put only the items listed on the card into the box and return it to your CCV campus. Get your whole family involved, your whole neighborhood team, and even your unchurched neighbors. How incredible to share with them the joy of showing the love of Christ, expecting nothing in return. Thank you in advance for putting your faith into action and preparing in advance to be the difference that our valley needs to see from those who are living the adventure of following Christ. Now let's continue with this great series in the book of James.
Well, hello, neighborhood teams. It is my privilege to be with you today. Welcome to week number 4 in our study of the book of James. I just want to make sure we all get headed in the same direction today, so I want to ask you to begin by considering this question. If you could use just one word to describe your life, what would that word be? One word. For me, it would be kind of hard to choose, but if I had to narrow it down to just one word, that word for me might just be the word passion. You see, I'm a pretty passionate person. I get really passionate about preaching. I get passionate about people. I'm passionate about my family. I get really passionate about golf. I'm not very good at golf, but I'm very passionate about it. I get passionate about tacos. I get passionate about coffee. Here's another kind of strange thing. I'm really, really passionate about VW buses. Not VW Beetles, not VW Bugs. I can't stand those. Only VW buses. I'm basically a really passionate person. But that's enough about me. What about you? If you could only choose one word to describe you, what would that word be? Some of you might say, well, the word that describes me is kind of cautious. Or some of you might say, well, the word that describes me is adventurous. Some of you might say skeptical, and others of you might say trusting. Here's what I want you to do. Take just a few minutes and go around your neighborhood team, and I want you to share that one word that might describe you. Go ahead and take a few minutes to do that. You know, there are many, many words that we use to describe ourselves. But do you know what word the Bible uses to describe us? In James chapter 4, I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with this. And you're thinking, you mean James describes me as extreme hold like hairspray? No. James describes you like this. You follow me? The Bible says that actually the best word that describes you and me is a mist. Look at James chapter 4, verse 14. It says that you are a mist that appears for just a little while and then it vanishes. So all of those other descriptive words that you said applied to you, they probably all apply, but this one word, mist, it applies even more. It's like overarching. So you might be adventurous, but you're an adventurous mist. You might be cautious, but you're a cautious mist. You're a skeptical mist. You're a trusting mist. For me, I may be passionate, but basically I am a passionate mist. The bottom line is, that's what you and I are. Now, James in the Bible, if he were to just put one descriptive word in front of the word mist, you know what word he would put? He would probably put the word pride. We're oftentimes prideful mists. And you know how we know this, that James is communicating this to us, is because we look at the language that precedes this idea of you and I being a mist. For instance, take a look at James chapter 4, verse 13 and verse 14. It says, "Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow, we will go to this city or that city, and we'll spend a year there, and we'll carry on business, and we'll make money. Why, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Instead, here's what you ought to say. If it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that." You see, James would say that we can oftentimes be prideful mists, because pride causes us to assume that we're in control. Pride causes us to assume that we have tomorrow. Pride causes us to assume that we can do whatever we want to do whenever we want to do it. And here's what's so crazy about all of this. Pride is oftentimes a prized attribute in our culture today. In fact, you know, the word pride, or the notion of pride, has often been called the respectable sin. You see, pride in our culture is oftentimes just relabeled as confidence. I'm not really a prideful person. I'm just really confident, not prideful. And I'll tell you what, there have been moments in my own life when I have really wondered, what I'm feeling right now, is this a good, healthy confidence that's built on the Bible and wise counsel of other people? Or is this, quote, confidence actually me just trying to justify an unhealthy attitude of pride? You see, the line that distinguishes pride and confidence is really hard to see sometimes. Let me try and illustrate it like this. Have you ever accidentally walked into a spider web? Have you ever done that? It's like you couldn't see the spider web until it was too late. You were already tangled up in this sticky spider web before you could do anything about it. I kind of think that's what pride is like. It's that sticky spider web, and it's hard to see pride until you're already entangled in it. Now, here's another thing that's crazy about pride, is that it's really, really easy to spot pride in other people. but it's almost impossible to see in yourself. So here's what let's do. Let's spend some time today in James discovering how to spot pride in our own lives before we get entangled in it. In James chapter 4, it tells us and warns us that pride does 3 different things in our lives. The first thing is that pride causes us to fight with friends and family and with ourselves. Take a look at this in James chapter 4, verse 1 in the Message version of the Bible. It says, "Where do you think all of these appalling wars and quarrels come from? Do you think they just happen? Think again. They come about because you want your own way, and you fight for it deep inside yourselves." You see, friends, when pride is allowed to live in your life, it causes you to quarrel with your friends and your family. The word quarrel there is the Greek word make, and it means to combat. Do you ever feel like you are oftentimes outwardly or even inwardly, just in your own mind, quarreling or combating with your friends or your family or your coworkers? If you feel that way, you may be starting to get tangled up in the sticky web of pride. James goes on to say that pride not only causes us to quarrel with friends and family, but it also causes us to quarrel and fight and battle with ourselves. It talks about how you want your way, how you fight for it deep down inside yourself. Have you ever experienced that? It's kind of like this interior battle. It's like in the courtroom of your own mind. And that's where pride roots itself. For many years, I led a really successful ministry in Simi Valley, California, and simultaneously harbored this kind of secret, respectable sin of pride. And let me just tell you, there's a couple things that pride will do to you if you leave it alone and if you allow it to flourish and take root in your life. The first thing is, pride will cause you to get jealous of other talented or popular people. I promise it will. You see, for me, I don't get jealous really of a musician when they write an amazing song. I don't get jealous of a baseball player when they hit a home run. But for myself, if I'm not careful, if I go to a leadership conference and I see a pastor or a communicator bring a great lesson, sometimes I can get jealous. And you know what I learned about pride? Pride oftentimes causes me to get jealous of people that do what I do. And I bet it's the same for you. A second thing that pride will do is it will cause you to carry a secret spirit of comparison. Now, these comparisons are usually done privately in your own mind. Other people around you don't even know you're doing it. But pride causes a person to be constantly comparing themselves and sizing themselves up against other people. And as you know, comparisons, they are not wise. Because if you compare and rank yourself below another person, then you get jealous. If you compare and rank yourself above another person, then you just get prideful. In the Bible, in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12, it says, when they measure themselves by themselves and compare themselves with themselves, they are not wise. Now, the problem is there's never been another time in the history of humanity that we've been able to compare ourselves to other people so comprehensively and so quickly. There's never been another time in the history of our world when pride or jealousy has been so easy to produce. And one of the main culprits for comparisons and pride in our culture is just one word: Facebook. Facebook. It's about time that we admitted that our constantly connected world is like a petri dish for comparisons. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take some time as a group, and I want you to talk through several of these questions that'll be on the screen. How does your pride cause you to get jealous or critical of other people? Talk about a time when a fight or a quarrel took way, way too long to resolve because of pride in your own life. Here's the second thing that James warns us about pride and what it does in our lives. Pride causes separation between you and God. The key verse in James chapter 4 may very well be James chapter 4, verse 10. It says in the New International Version, "Humble yourself before the Lord, and He will lift you up." I love what this verse says in the Message version of the Bible. It says, "Get down on your knees before the Master. It's the only way you'll get on your feet." Wow, isn't that awesome? The only way to really get on your feet, the only way to really stand strong is to first get on your knees. You have to get down on your knees, which is a humbling thing. It means you're making yourself vulnerable. It usually means that you are submitting to someone or something other than yourself. Now, why does James tell us that his readers that we need to be humbled, that they need to humble themselves? I think it's pretty simple. It's because they weren't being humble. They were being prideful. And pride always puffs people up. Our pride makes us think we can do it on our own. I don't need God for this. I will take care of this. You see, here's what pride does. Pride causes God to be our last resort instead of our first option. You see, I think that's why James instructs us in chapter 4, verse 8, that we should come near to God, and then God will come near to you. James says, hey, listen, folks, Instead of trying to do it all yourself, here's what you need to do. You need to get down on your knees and you need to submit yourself to God. You need to come near to God, and then He will come near to you. So let's do this. Let's talk about this for a little bit. How can pride cause God to be our last resort instead of our first option? Share a situation in your life when you tried to handle and resolve and solve something all by yourself. And then, only after much pain, you decided you needed to drop your pride, humble yourself, and come near to God. Well, friends, I talked about this when we began our time together today, but here's the third thing that pride does in our lives. Pride causes arrogant planning. Remember this? You are a mist. That is literally what you are. It's what I am. We are a mist that appears for just a brief time, and then we are gone. Maybe you've never really thought about it this way, but it's actually incredibly presumptuous and prideful to assume that tomorrow is promised. As James says in the Bible, hey, listen, you don't even know what will happen tomorrow. I mean, what is your life? You are like a mist that appears for just a little while and then vanishes. What is something you have put off until tomorrow that you really know you should be doing today? Maybe you would say something like, studying my Bible. I know that's something I should really be doing, or I should be exercising more, or I should be eating right. What is something you have put off until tomorrow that you know you should be doing today? If your life really is a mist and you are not promised tomorrow, how does that change the way you view your life today?